All right, man. It is 11:30 and we are very, very blessed and grateful to have this guy on the show. Are you excited about Mr. College Football himself?
How could you not be?
All right, so let me go ahead and bring him in here, Mr. Tony Barnhart. Mr. Barnhart, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing well, fellas. Hope you're okay too.
Thank you.
Tony, I got a quick question. Does your wife ever call you Mr. College Football?
No, she calls me a lot of things,
Yeah.
and nothing that flattering. But no, occasionally she'll get a Mrs. College Football when we go out sometimes. So it's okay. It's all good.
At least she wears it proudly, right?
That's right.
Well, first off, let me just go ahead and say, with everything that's been going on here lately, how are you? Are you staying healthy and away from COVID?
I am. I am. I've got. I'm not on total lockdown, but I'm not traveling to games this year. Quite honestly, I'm not really getting anything out of the games if I'm there. I don't need to sit in a press box with two pieces of plexiglass on either side of me. I go to the games to visit with people, to talk to them, to network and things like that. And you just can't do that. And then the post-game press conference is a Zoom call. Well, I can do that anywhere. So I made a decision. I've seen a lot of football, and it's better than being at a game. And so for now, I'm gonna hunker down and just watch the games from home.
Tony, what's one thing that you see the future of college football here for 2021, 22, dealing with all this craziness?
Well, I think it's going to be a long time before everybody's totally comfortable. So you're going to have to keep practicing the social distancing, I think, on into next year. I don't know when we're going to see 95,000 people in a stadium again. I think you're going to have to work through a lot to get there. Even if we get an all clear at some point next year, people are going to be hesitant. So that's a long answer to saying we don't know, but everybody's going to be cautious moving forward. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Who do you trust? What's the voice of reason in the college football world that you trust that's been getting most of these things right dealing with the virus?
You know, I listen to a lot of different people, and just talking to I talked to some medical people here in Atlanta that I really, really trust. I spent time when we had the whole myocarditis thing, the heart issue. I spent a lot of time with a cardiologist who I trust a lot. So a lot of what I get from a medical standpoint are from people here in Atlanta that I really trust.
What is one thing moving forward that you think will actually benefit college football after we come out of this?
Well, I think everybody's going to be very grateful just to have the sport of college football. We came so close to not having it. I mean, I'll admit that in mid-July, I did an interview with Commissioner Greg Sankey. He didn't sound optimistic. I said, you got to sound optimistic, because if you're not optimistic, I'm not going to be optimistic. But as things turned out, things got headed back in the right direction. And when the SEC decided to start their season on September 26th, then I felt good that we were going to get started. Now, obviously, there have been some issues. There are going to be issues. There will continue to be issues. There was no way I was told this season was going to be a straight line. But we've gotten to the midway point. Everybody's got about 4 or 5 games, and now that Florida looks like they're back online, let's knock on wood and hope we can get through the rest of the season.
What has been your biggest takeaway from college football as a whole so far?
People aren't tackling very well.
You get that right.
They're not tackling because guess what? They didn't have a spring. They were hesitant to practice tackling in the fall because of injuries. And as a result, well, 2 things have happened. People aren't tackling well, and just about everybody has gone to the up-tempo offense, and we're seeing more points than ever. Nick Saban said it earlier this week to Chris Lowe. It used to be where great defense could beat great offense. He said that's no longer the case. So when Nick Saban says that, you better pay attention to it.
Yeah. What is other reporters, other journalists that you really respect, and if they say it, it's absolutely true. Who are some guys that you enjoy reading, and some other guys that you really respect in the world of journalism?
Well, there's so many. I mean, obviously Andy Staples and Bruce Feldman and people like that who are just the very, very best. My good friends Ivan Maisel of ESPN.com. There are so many of us. A lot of us grew up. Dennis Dodd from CBS is a great friend. We've worked together. We used to be colleagues. So there's a lot of great journalism going on, and this is a great time to. This is the kind of reporting that, or time that cries out for great journalism, and we're lucky. We've got a bunch of them in the sports community.
All right, well, let's go back to the SEC now. Who are some of your biggest surprises and disappointments so far this year in the SEC?
Well, the surprise to me, the surprise team is two of them is the way that Missouri and Arkansas have played. Because I wrote off both of those, particularly Arkansas. I wrote them off. Did not know if they had a win after losing 19 straight games. Did not know if they had a win on that schedule because they didn't play Vanderbilt. But they have Sam Pittman and the staff, Barry Odom, defensive coordinator, have done a great job. I was very impressed with the way that Missouri played against Kentucky the other day. They didn't just beat Kentucky; they dominated them. 400 yards of total offense, and Kentucky didn't even have 200. So I think Eli Drinkwitz has done a good with that. The disappointing teams right now, I'm disappointed in Tennessee. I didn't expect. I expected them to lose to Georgia. I expected them to lose to Alabama. That's not the issue. The issue is the continued inconsistent quarterback play and the fact that they were dominated by those two teams. And so that when you're measuring your program, how far you've come and how far you still need to go, it's not necessarily wins and losses. It's how competitive you are. And quite honestly, Tennessee was not competitive against Georgia in the second half of both of those games, and that's a concern.
Yeah. Tony, what about Mike Leach and Starkville? Is the air raid going to work here in the SEC? I know Mississippi State's having massive offensive line problems. They can't block three guys rushing with five linemen. But once they figure that out, will the air raid work?
Well, here's the thing. The thing that concerns me for Mississippi State is, they had an incredible opening game against LSU that shocked everybody. But the fact of the matter is, Mike Leach's offense, the air raid offense, there is a defense for it. That's, as you mentioned, rushing 3 and dropping 8. And when they do that, when teams do that, you can't keep throwing it on every down. Maybe you could throw it on every down in the Pac-12. You can't throw it on every down in this league. That's when you've got to run the ball. And Kylan Hill right now, one of the best backs in the conference, is not in the program right now. He's not playing. And so until Mike Leach figures out a running game, the coaches in this league are so good, they're going to continue to rush 3 and drop 8. And if you can't block 3, like you see in this video right here, if you can't block 3 with your 5, you're in a world of hurt.
Yes, you are. We had Cole Kubrick on last week, and we were talking to Cole about things and the air raid and such. But with everything going on with offenses and defenses and the surprising losses that are starting to pop up in the SEC, Cole mentioned that he does not think any coaches will be replacing the SEC due to all the craziness going on in 2020. Do you see any coaching changes? We won't ask who, but do you see any of the 14 teams in the SEC making a single coaching change here?
I really don't, because at the beginning of the season, I was told there are two things going on here while the coaching carousel is not going to be the way it usually is. It's good. Number one, if you can just get your team through 10 games and play 10 games and get to the end of the year, you've done a heck of a job managing your team. That's number one. Number two, nobody has any money to pay off any coaches, okay? With the budgetary situation being what it is, they're going to get some of the TV money back, of course, but the money from attendance, the money from sale, paraphernalia sales, and all of that money, most of that money is gone. And so you really can't afford. Well, let's take Will Muschamp. I think his buyout is somewhere around $17, $18 million. And if that's right, you can't write Will Muschamp. Ray Tanner, the AD at South Carolina, can't do. He doesn't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have, maybe some of the big pocketed alumni could come up with it, but he doesn't have that kind of money. So I think unless things just completely fall apart and a team quits, I don't think we're going to see any changes this year. Now that I have gone on with you guys and said that, it's guaranteed we're going to have some changes.
Tony, what are some of the guys that you used to cover that are no longer in the SEC? Some of the legendary coaches that you really miss?
Oh, I miss Steve Spurrier. I mean, I miss jumping on the phone call with him every week because Steve Spurrier is one of those guys that during the off season I would just pick up the phone and call him for no reason at all, and just to see what was on it. And invariably, he would say something that you could turn into a column or something humorous. And so I miss talking to him on a regular basis. I miss Les Miles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always look forward to the SEC media days when he would give us a report on what he did on his summer vacation, which was always entertaining. So those are a couple of guys that I really miss.
Is it going to be true? Is this going to be a true statement one day? Nick Saban, the greatest coach that Alabama ever had.
Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach in history. Okay. Now you got to be careful because nobody can replace Coach Bryant.
Right.
His aura hangs over the program, even though Nick Saban is the greatest coach in the history of the game. When they beat Georgia for the national championship in 2017, that night, and it was late, I wrote that Nick Saban was the greatest college football coach of all time. But when you get in there talking about his legacy, which is unsurpassed, and Coach Bryant, there's no need. They both stand right there together. Mm-hmm. And so, but I will never say Nick Saban is a greater coach than Bear Bryant. You just can't say those words.
Right. Right.
Even though his record before he's done the numbers will say that he's the greatest coach.
Mm. Wow. How much longer will Coach Saban be with us?
Every time I talk to him, he's like a guy that, he's still challenged by putting together a team, taking this group of guys, and this is a totally different team, and this is what we've got to do, and all that. I think he still enjoys that. I think as long as he's winning, and as long as he's recruiting at a high level, he's in great shape physically. Mm-hmm. So I think he will keep doing it. The coaches that I know who got out of it because they started. Well, Coach Spurrier. Coach Spurrier said, "I'm not going to hang around and be a 7-5 coach." Well, what he did was he hung around 1 year too long, and he became a 7-5 coach. And that's when he stepped down in the middle of the season.
Mm.
Well, let's go to a controversial issue that is going on over in the Oxford, Mississippi area. What did you think about the no call and no replay on the fumble in the end zone this past Saturday?
Well, that kind of play has to be reviewed. It has to be reviewed on the field. It has to be reviewed in Birmingham. And to go on without reviewing that was a mistake, and the conference office admits that it was a mistake. It's unfortunate. These things do happen, but by the same token, you have to, Coach. I know Coach Kiffin was very upset by it, and he was playing to his fan base. But you don't get to. It's a rule that everybody passed. The president signed off on it. Even if you're right, you don't get to criticize the officials. Those are just the rules. So it's an unfortunate call. They should have reviewed it. The conference admitted, and now everybody's got to move on.
Yes.
Steve Robertson from 247 made a comment on Twitter about this, and he said, we're keeping the coaches accountable, and Lane got fined, and he said, but we're not keeping the officials accountable, and we're keeping their names secret. Do you think that's fair?
It has to be fair. You're talking about an issue of security. You're talking about an issue. The SEC has never released the name of an official that it is reprimanded. Guys get reprimanded. They sit. They're sit. They are forced to sit a game or two at the end of the year. If it's too egregious, and unceremoniously, they're just not invited back. I know of lots of cases of officials who were not invited back because their performance was inconsistent. But you can't. There is accountability to the officials, but it can't be, in my opinion, it can't be public accountability because of security issues.
Tony, of all the guys you interviewed over the years out of the SEC, and I'm talking about players, who did you really, just give us 2 or 3 names that you really enjoyed interviewing and why?
I added Joe Burrow to that list last summer doing SEC Media Days. We were in a room. There was several of us national reporters in with some LSU players, and all of a sudden I looked up, and there is Joe Burrow sitting by himself at a table. And so I went over and sat down, and I said, and this is before last season, I said,
right,
Joe, you guys are making a big deal out of finally opening up the offense. And I said, we've heard it all before. Why is this year going to be different? He said, it's going to be different. We're going to run it, and we're going to average 40 points a game. I went, wow, really? Well, of course, Joe was wrong. They averaged 48 points a game. He was just incredible. One of my favorites, Marcus Lattimore, running back at South Carolina, just an incredible guy. Broke my heart when he had those injuries, but he was a guy who wanted to know how to get better. He would ask me questions about how do I handle media interviews to be better than I am. Just a absolutely incredible guy. Peyton Manning, so smart, and he and one of his teammates, Al Wilson. Al Wilson was one of the most dynamic people I have ever met in this profession, and had a whole lot of respect for him and Peyton. But so the list goes on. Danny Werfel. Danny Werfel has now become one of the neat things is some of the people that you cover end up being friends. Danny Werfel and I are friends. I help him with his charity events, and he helps me with mine. And the list goes on and on. DJ Shockley, SEC championship quarterback. DJ and I have become very good friends since his playing days stopped. It's a real neat relationship when people that you covered and respected end up being your friends.
Well, let's move on to this upcoming weekend, and we have a couple of good games. Of course, Auburn and LSU. Can you kind of break down that football game for us, please?
Well, the fact the game's at Auburn, to me, gives Auburn a shot at this. That was obviously a big win for them last week. That last week was what I call a quality of life win. Okay?
Yes.
You're not going to get fired if you lose it, but the quality of life is going to be a whole lot different. And that was a quality of life win for Gus Malzahn and Auburn. Now, I think they have finally found their offensive identity with Tank Bigsby running the ball a lot. He needs to get more. So I think Auburn's starting to figure out what their identity is going to be. LSU last week, TJ Finley came off the bench when the starting quarterback couldn't go, played really, really well, and they just manhandled South Carolina. So I think this is a great, great game. I'm going to give Auburn a slight edge because they're playing at home, and quite honestly, Bo Nix seems to play better at home.
Right.
Tony, the Arkansas Texas A&M game. Is if Arkansas pulls this out, I mean, right, is it time to take Sam Pittman and Arkansas as very seriously of starting to become a national program again?
Well, yeah, I think so. Remember, this game was originally scheduled for Jerry's World in Arlington, Texas, the Cowboys Stadium, and when COVID hit, they decided to move it on campus. So it's at Texas A&M. I think that gives the Aggies an edge. And I think the Aggies have also started to find their identity, which is running the ball with Spiller a lot more and not putting so much of the game on Kellen Mond's shoulders. So I as much as I like Arkansas and what they're doing, I like the Aggies at home.
We've talked about Kellen Mond a couple of times on the show. He's always going to keep A&M in the game, but he's always going to keep the other team in the game. You would think we would see some consistency out of Kellen Mond. Is there something that A&M needs to do other than giving the ball to Spiller that they can help Kellen Mond develop and keep that offense clicking there at A&M?
Well, I think obviously not relying. Don't throw that many passes. Get get the number of passes down if you can. Give him easier throws. Don't try to give him too many progressions on any given throw. In other words, simplify the game for him where he knows it's either this guy, or I'm taking off running. So I think you need to simplify the game for him. He's a really good talent. He really is. He throws a nice ball, but like you said, I agree. If he can do a lot of nice things, but you throw 2 or 3 turnovers in there, you got a problem.
Yeah. I've got 2 more questions for you. Number 1, how do you see the Mississippi State-Alabama game going in Tuscaloosa?
Not well for Mississippi State.
Right.
If Mississippi State can't run the ball, then they're just not going to be able to move it with consistency. Now, Alabama showed against Ole Miss they can give up some yards passing.
Yes.
But I don't think you're going to see that. I think Alabama is really starting to hit their stride, and they may score some points, but they won't score as many points as Alabama will. So I think this will be an ugly game.
Go on, Stephen.
Go ahead, Heath. Go
okay.
More, but go ahead.
I was going to ask one fun question before we got out of here. Not necessarily the best players in the SEC, but 3 of your top favorite players that you've just really enjoyed watching and enjoyed watching them play in. Tony, who would those 3 players be?
You're talking about over the course of the years?
Yeah, all the years, yes.
I saw Herschel Walker play. He was really good. I saw Bo Jackson play. He was really good. And I always tell people when it comes to running backs, it's Herschel and Bo, and then there's everybody else. I was lucky early in my career that both of those guys came along. To watch Danny Werfel go from being on the bench to being a Heisman Trophy winner was a lot of fun for me. That entire 1998 Tennessee team, I covered just about every game they played that year. And for T. Martin to take over that team from Peyton Manning, with Peerless Price and Al Wilson and all those guys, that was a whole lot of fun to watch. And and I just think watching in the age of the college football playoff, it's been a lot of fun to watch these Alabama teams and watching them dominate. I will never forget the 2017 national championship game between Alabama and Georgia in Atlanta. And I was standing in that corner of the end zone when Tua launched that rocket into the corner to win the game. And everybody was just on the field was stunned. They went, wait a minute, the game's over. Holy cow. And so it was and that was the happiest I've ever seen Nick Saban in person. He was hugging Tom Rinaldi. He was having a blast.
All right. Well, finally, we've talked a lot about the West. Who do you ultimately see winning the East and going to Atlanta in the SEC?
Well, we'll know a lot more a week from this Saturday when Georgia and Florida play in Jacksonville. I still give Georgia a slight edge because of the defense. Florida's offense is much better than Georgia's, quite honestly. But I think Georgia's defense is going to spell the difference in that game. But it's not going to shock me if Florida wins the game.
Yes.
But those are your 2 teams, and I think that's going to get decided next, not this Saturday, but next Saturday in Jacksonville.
All right. Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything? Would you like to plug your charity or anything at this moment?
Well, no, I would just say for folks who want to read what I'm doing. I have a website with 3 of my old newspaper buddies called TMG College Sports. It's under the Sports Illustrated umbrella. So it's si.com/TMG, si.com/TMG. And check out what we're doing there. We publish every day. And we have a podcast that we do where we have way too much fun. So check that out.
All right,
man. Check that out.
Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Okay, guys. Enjoy it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Man, that was a blast.
Yeah, Mr. College Football. Hey,
Yes.
I didn't know he had a podcast. I'm actually disappointed in myself for not knowing that. If I had known that, I'd been listening since day one.